So let me now introduce our keynote speaker for this morning, Mike Bechtel, who is the Chief Futurist at Deloitte Consulting. At Deloitte, he helps clients develop strategies to thrive in the face of discontinuity and disruption. Anybody feeling any sort of disruption in your professional worlds? Everything pretty much status quo? Not really. Okay. So he is going to talk to us today about start building your tomorrow today. So let me turn this over to Mike.
Thank you so much, Mary Dee. Hey, everybody. Thank you. How's it going? Yeah? All right. Hello from Chicago. 11 furious hours in Boston, and I'm pumped to be with you. I want to figure out, what's more natural? My pacing up here or my pacing down here? Yeah, I'm worried that the people in the back won't see my head. I'm not vertically gifted. Okay. So, folks, when I tell people that I'm a futurist, they understandably, I like to say they lean. And I see it happening right now. There's about 4 of you in the audience who are leaning in. Oh, this is going to be fantastic. And then there's at least 6 of you who are sort of leaning like this. Like, oh, brother, here comes the snake oil. And my promise to you is that if I do my job right, I will help inoculate you a little bit against snake oil. But for starters, who here knows raise your hand if you've heard the term snake oil. Okay, good. Right on. You can keep your hand up if you're pumped about snake oil. I am not personally pumped about false goods, right? False bill of sale, etc. And so by inoculating against snake oil, here's what I mean. As recently as 4 years ago, my team and I at Deloitte, I wouldn't call it snake oil, but I would call this slide an example of suboptimal data visualization. Let's play a game called List the Myriad Ways in Which This Slide Freaking Disappoints You. All right, and as my wife Barb, who's a marriage and family therapist, likes to say, feelings can never be wrong. And so let me know. Popcorn it out. Why does this slide bum you out? Folks, embrace the hate to innovate. Yes, sir?
Can't see it.
Can't see it, right. Something I've learned in my 25 years is that you should never have a font size lower than half the median age of your audience. This is a data crowd. You guys are legit. Okay, yes, can't see it. What else? There's a lot more reasons this slide sucks. What else? Don't know what the message is. Yeah, where's the thesis? What's the point? Yes, sir? Information over TMI, for sure. The legend. That's my favorite. I was in Denmark a couple weeks ago, and there was a Dutchman there. And he's like, what is the orange cross? Is this Dutch? I was like, no, it's not Dutch. I don't even know what it means. I built it. Yes?
Which industry is it targeted at?
Sorry?
Which industry is it targeted at?
Yeah, what's the sector? What's it mean? And if you could read it, you'd be even more disappointed. There's things like artificial sensing skin, topographic quantum computing substrates. And here's the deal. It's a blizzard of buzzwords, right? It's a shock and awe campaign meant to connote understanding, but there is none, right? Mary Dee and I were talking before breakfast about the difference between data and knowledge. This is barely data, it ain't knowledge. And so, one of the things that we've learned over the last few years is that if we want to do futures work right, we need to approach it not as future people, but as historians. And for those of you who reacted a moment ago, my son does admit this slide transition is, quote, fire. Right? He's 17. He's like, Dad, I don't understand your stuff, but that's lit. It's like, thanks, Brady. Audience participation number 2 of N. Anybody have a guess what this thing is? And hint, historian, so it's old, it ain't new. ENIAC, good guess, close, conceptually close, 100 years off. Yes?
What was the original?
Oh, the census bomb. No. No, but that's a really good one. I will add that to my histogram of previously unheard answers. No, but good answer, yes. The Jacquard loom. It does look like the Jacquard loom. It's not, though. It's not. I had a guy, New York guy, a couple months ago. He's like, it's like one of those little like change purses where you're popping out change. And I was like, no, because it's the size of a Volkswagen, right? Somebody actually said it as part of a passing answer. Somebody mentioned Babbage. Yeah. This is Charles Babbage and Ada Lovelace's first computer design from 1842. And here's the deal. As a Chicagoan growing up, late 1980s, 7th grade, my science teacher, Mr. Kevin McMillan, God bless him, but he lied right to our face. He's like, the first computer was built in New Jersey called ENIAC, 1946. No. First computer was conceptually built 100 years earlier, London, Babbage and Lovelace, 1843. Now, why does this matter? Here's why this matters. I used to be a venture capitalist. So I started my career, like a brief history of me, 12 years as an inventor, like inventor, like soldering gun, beaker, code, patents, all that jazz. And then I worked for 9 years as an investor. I was a VC, where we played matchmaker between startups and enterprises. And the reason that matters is because the first part of my career was like a front row seat to what's possible. The second chapter of my career was like, here's a subset of that noise that's profitable, right? And the reason I share all that is to say I'm at the Y Combinator. Who here's heard of Y Combinator? Right? Yeah, Paul Graham, Sam Altman, the Harvard for startups. They're very humble people. They call themselves that. But the self-described Harvard for startups, they had 80 pitches back to back, 2 minutes each, no bathroom breaks. And as an investor, I've had enough. So I walk out to the lobby and I see this full-on Volkswagen-sized recreation of the difference engine, this thing. And in the notes, Babbage and Lovelace, they're describing these 3 key subsystems that make the thing the thing. They say, we propose a store which will hold the arithmetic units not unlike a silo might hold grain. I go, that's an adorkable, anachronistic way to say database. They say, we further propose a mill which will reap the arithmetic from meaning to meaning in much the same way we might render wheat into flour. It's like, okay, it's a CPU. And then they talk about the reader, which stamps clay tablets so us muggles can make sense of all the wizardry. And I'm thinking, okay, and then I, like slow motion, Hallmark moment, where I drop my little snack plate of Cheez-Its, and it hits me. It says, wait a minute. I was sold on the idea that the 3-tiered web architecture was an innovation in flippin' 1998. Who here remembers, not to age ourselves, but who here remembers like N-tier web architectures, right? With an interface layer, a data layer, right? And a compute layer, and da-da-da-da-da. And it was sold to me as being new. And I thought, but no, it was there from the jump 200 years ago. What if the whole honking history of information technology has been a series of evolutions along just these 3 tracks? Well, that's interesting, but it doesn't make for data science. And so our team got busy doing the research. And we did one of these things that Deloitte does best, which is we wrote a giant book report. Right, 200 pages, 9 jillion endnotes. And what we were able to show was that Babbage and Lovelace's reader mill and store gave way to people in white lab coats feeding punch cards to a computer the size of a room. Doing what? Doing science. Until my dad's generation. My dad was a taxi company employee, south side of Chicago. One day he's cleaning up. He's putting on a collared shirt. It's like a Wednesday night. say, Dad, where are you going? He goes, I'm learning how to work computers, night school. I said, why for? It's for science. He said, nah, it's for bookkeepers now. Rows and columns, databases. Huh. So you didn't need a PhD, you merely needed night school. Then I show up in the workforce. I don't even need to be literate because I got Windows. Right? I got icons, I got GUIs. Right? And I'm not just looking at the rows and columns, I'm not looking at the data. Data Summit colleagues, I'm looking at patterns in the data. Descriptive analytics, making sense of what happened, why it happened. Will it happen again? And good news, half of the machines, the ones that are no longer just on our desk, they're down in the basement. Right? Client server, Novell networks. So that's the end of history, right? Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. No, because then I start hiring young professionals. This is the user interface. Right? I like to joke, I didn't need to read. They don't even need good posture. Right? Just doing this, touch and swipe instead of click and type. They're looking at forward projections, data science, predictive analytics. And good news, most of the computers aren't even in their basement anymore. They're in somebody else's basement. Because I like to tell my clients, there's secretly no cloud. It's just an organization with a profoundly larger basement. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. The reason we look at the past is because what it provides for us is a directionality, a through line to make sense of the present. For example, some of us are understandably concerned that an organization in Silicon Valley has literally renamed itself so that they might force us to wear toasters on our face at work. The metaverse. Virtual, unlimited, augmented reality. Why? Why? Well, here's a scoop. This stuff isn't interesting because it's shiny. Okay? Virtual and augmented reality is a recognition that we're living at an age of too many damn screens. How many of you have a phone on your person right now? How many of you have two phones, the work phone and the personal phone? Okay, about a third of you. How many of you also have a smartwatch of some sort? Okay, so the median number of 16 by 9 pixelated rectangles on your person right now, we're up to about 2.5. How many of you also have a laptop or a tablet with you? Right. And then you think about your house, right? You got the iPad, the other one that's under the couch, you got the kid's phone, the backup phone. When you look at a picture from the 1980s, do you ever look at old pictures with your kids, with your family? And your kids say, what's that? You're like, that's a Rubik's Cube. Weird. What's that? It's called shag carpeting. It's also weird. What's that? Trivial Pursuit. It used to be great. Okay. Those are called anachronisms. Things out of time. Things that no longer are. Our kids are going to look back at 2023 and they're going to think that we lived at a weird age of peak screen. They're going to say, oh my God, look at all the rectangles everywhere. They're ubiquitous. Because they hadn't found a better way. And what's the better way? It's not a VCR on your head, like this guy. It's going to be the worst kept secret in Silicon Valley, tidy little glasses that allow us to paint pixels in our lived reality. Why is this interesting? Not because it's bling, not because it's supply-side voodoo economics, but because this is going to get us past the tyranny of too many flippant screens and into a world where I can look towards the sun to see when's the sunset, look towards the bus stop to see when's the bus coming, look towards a colleague, and if they opt in on permissions, see their name enroll in the company. The real point is, simple. Simple always wins. Right? From PhD to night school. From night school to don't need to read. From don't need to read to what's a manual. I mean, I at least needed dummies books. Anybody here ever have like learn Java in 14 days or, Windows 3.11 for work groups for dummies? Imagine bringing any software on anybody in 2023 and saying, here's the manual. No. because simple wins. The technology gets more complicated so that the experience can get simpler. Here's the other thing. Sometimes people say to me, they say, AR, VR ain't new. I say, you're darn right. I used to go to the mall to plug in on a game called BattleTech 25 years ago. Mech Warrior for the real geeks among us. It was legit, and it was situated and grounded and connected by fiber, and it cost $50 for 5 minutes. And now, thanks to 5G Edge, the rest of it, GPU compute and all, this stuff is turned from tech to toy on its way to tool. One of my clients is a CTO at a large electric utility. She's one of the best storytellers I ever met. She says, have you ever worked on an electrical substation? I said, no, ma'am. She goes, oh my God, you don't even have to touch it wrong. You just look at it wrong, it'll shock you dead. So I said, tell me more. Well, she goes on to explain that at this company, they had built computer-based, laptop-based training that was cheaper and safer so you could learn how to carry yourself around an electrical substation if you're a field worker. The problem was the learning outcomes were diminished, right? Because when people get out there, they weren't prepared. They built a VR, AR simulation of the same, what our kids would simply know as, oh yeah, they built it in Roblox. Cheaper, safer, learning outcomes, not only matched, but superior to the old field trips they used to take to the desert. And her executive summary, maybe the best executive summary I ever heard in my whole life, she goes, and when you shock yourself, you get a second life. It's like Mario. And I said, well, there you go. Folks, my work here is done. So the point is, this stuff has been tech for 30 years. It's been a toy for the last 15. But it's turning the corner towards enterprise tool, and it matters. The unsung hero of this quiet interface simplicity revolution is conversational voice. Right? 7 years ago, smart speakers in our houses weren't so smart. Those software stacks are on like version 608. Right? I would encourage you guys to reignite relationships with any smart speakers you might still have or that might be hiding in a drawer. Because these things have gotten good. And what we're finding is in the enterprise, they're starting to show up too. Anybody, audience participation, who do you think is the least likely professional role to use Salesforce software? Sales. Well done, dude. Sales pros are famously allergic to CRM systems like Salesforce. Why? Because when you talk to them, they're like, I got stuff to do. I'm busy. And that's code for like, dude, I'm going to lunch and drinking, and I'm playing golf, and I'm trying to close this account, and I don't sit at the computer like you, nerd. Well, what they realized was that this wasn't a nerd problem, it was a modality problem. What if you could allow John or Joan, sales professional, to talk to the car on the way to the golf, right? And say, hey, update so-and-so account to second base, change the margin to 30%. Move the close date to March. Usage, 60% up. The punchline is, simple always wins, and simple means different things for different use cases. There's cooks at Cisco, the enterprise kitchen company, not the router company, who can now say, hey, order more carrots, after 10 years of trying and fumbling to use iPads in the kitchen because their hands are dirty. They're not going to do it. Now, in the middle, the warm chocolatey center of the history of information technology is data, which is good because we're at the data summit. It's supposed to be about data. And you can't talk about data in 2023 without talking about artificial intelligence. But here's the deal, man. Artificial intelligence, in my opinion, is a red herring. And to quote noted business technology strategist Admiral Akbar, it's a trap. One person is a Return of the Jedi fan. That's good. Thanks for the laugh. Anybody know who this cat is? He's a computer scientist who invented copy-paste. His name is Larry Tesler. He worked at Xerox PARC. He's a hero. As far as I'm concerned, he's going straight to geek heaven. As much for copy-paste as for this great quote. He said, listen, AI is whatever the heck computers can't do yet. And this speaks to me because when I was in college in 1996, I had a professor, Professor Wiedenoff. The day before Garry Kasparov was going to play IBM Deep Blue in a game of chess, Wiedenoff says, there's no way IBM will defeat Kasparov. He's a grandmaster. There's no way. Next day, headline, IBM machine defeats chess grandmaster 2-1. We all come into class expecting Professor V to have his tail between his legs, nervous, conciliatory. You know what he says? But it's not really AI. What do you mean? It's expert system, it's pre-coded, it's stuff. He waves it off. So a couple years later, I'm sitting on the couch, it's 2011. My bride, my little guy, we're watching Ken Jennings lose bigly to another IBM product, this time branded Watson. And in my mind, I'm imagining Professor Wiedenoff saying, that's not really AI. Because what's happening? We doubt the next mechanical mind miracle, then we pull it off, and then our pride as Homo sapiens finds us moving the goalpost. This is special, but it's not me. This is special, but it's not me. Right? A more useful term, I believe, than AI is to realize that this whole thing has been AI. And the question is, what's new in AI? Don't talk to your stakeholders about AI as a change of kind. Talk about it as an evolution of degree. And since we're at Data Summit, we can get geeky with it. We can talk about cognitive automation, the recognition that mechanical minds have made the jump in the enterprise from this guy to this guy. What do I mean? Okay, quick show of hands, because we only got one laugh on noted business strategist Admiral Akbar. Who here has at least seen a Star Wars movie? Okay, good, very good, very good. That one played a little bit differently in Croatia. No, true story. I mean, they're really into the prequels. It's actually really weird. Sorry, now I'm like off track even by my standards. Remember Han's relationship with C-3PO? Would you characterize it as a constructive relationship? No, it was an abusive relationship. Because C-3PO would offer statistics and data-driven insights. Sir, the odds of successfully navigating an asteroid field are 9 million. And what would Han say? Shut him. Never tell me the odds. Shut him up. Goldenrod, right? He couldn't stand him. Because C-3PO showed up as a 2015 era business intelligence application. C-3PO was like Cognos in the back, business objects, Tableau, being like, have you considered this? You're like, thanks for nothing, jerk. Because the business had moved on, and this thing was out of band as an analytics wonk like 3PO. Who was Han's bestie? Han's bestie was this guy. Chewbacca knew the same things of a sort that C-3PO did, but he quietly grabbed the stick and got you out of harm's way. He was a creator, a co-pilot, not a critic. And so he was therefore valuable because he automated those insights and turned them into action. And so what we're seeing is that at businesses, I told you I was in Denmark, here we were, I was meeting with Gustav and Henrik. They work for a large toy brick company you've probably all heard of. And Gustav comes up to me, he goes, we found this tool which scans every brick in your child's pile and tells you every conceivable toy you might create from these bricks. Then he leans in, shades of Professor V. He goes, "Is this really AI?" I'm like, "Henrik, man, it's all AI and none of it's AI. Cool it with the AI. What matters is it's merely very useful." Who here has a kid or has ever been a kid? Right? Have you guys ever engaged in the folly, Dante's deepest circle of hell, of trying to organize Lego bricks? Right? Right? It starts with piles. You look like you're living this one vividly, miss. You for sure. It starts with little piles, and then you're at the Container Store paying unspeakable sums for bins for Legos, and then it's like by color, by shape. There's no answer. The answer is, this is an opportunity for a mechanical mind to relieve us of our burden. Okay? And the punchline is this, folks. The state of the art right now in the enterprise is automating discernment and decision-making so that people can focus on things that require peopling. Some of us know it boring as robotic process automation. And that's what it is, right? But that's not suddenly AI, and there will be a heck of a lot more where that came from. Number 3, distributed platforms. What's that? Whoa, Trojan horse, it's the B word, it's blockchain. Oh no, future guy, blockchain. FTX, SBF, isn't this thing finally over? No! Because what we're seeing with respect to blockchain is that it's finally in its third act. Remember the first act? The first act was a pseudonymous founder who created a dark tool on the dark web so dark folks could buy dark drugs. And that didn't feel terribly enterprise grade. And so people didn't want to touch it. And then about 6 years ago, there was Return of Blockchain, Son of Blockchain, right? Bride of Blockchain, which was about enterprise supply chain projects. Right? I had a large retailer you're all aware of who was tracking lettuce on its route from LA to New York using blockchain. I said, how come? Like, because it's the blockchain. But why for? And the answer was data management, distributed something, ... It was a hammer looking for a nail. Maybe the biggest hammer I've ever seen in search of nails. And it didn't take off. It's finally taken off. But quietly and in a super boring way. And that's why we know it's starting to grow up and be ready for business. I'll give you an example. Chow Tai Fook, one of our clients, they're the largest jeweler in Hong Kong. Talking to their CTO. This guy doesn't look or sound anything like Don Corleone, but his office looked exactly like Don Corleone's office from The Godfather. And so I'm going to make him into Don Corleone. He says, what do you know about jewelry? I said, not very much, sir. He goes, I've got 2 problems. He says, 2 problems? He goes, over here I got synthetic made diamonds. Built in a lab. That's not good for my margins. I said, I could see how that'd be good for the earth, but I could see how it's bad for you. He goes, over here I got blood diamonds from Africa. What do you know about blood diamonds? I go, just what I saw in the Don Cheadle movie. He goes, it's even worse. Huh. He goes on to tell me that the trick for him and his company is how do they show their customers that what they've built are real mine diamonds, ethically sourced. He then goes on to blow my mind. He says, in 2003, Web 1.0, you know how they would have shown the world that they had the real deal? They would have used a technology innovation on the front of their website, probably top right, called About Us. Click. Whew. For 165 years, Chow Tai Fook has been a reputable purveyor of finely cut stones. Trust us. Anybody guess what the Web 2.0 2013 version would have been? Facebook reviews, Google reviews, Foursquare reviews, Yelp reviews, wisdom of the crowds, because none of us is as smart as all of us. Until they got weaponized and kind of calcified and metastasized over the last 5 years, where everything is a shouting match all the time, and trust in institutions is at an all-time low, and trust in business and each other is decaying. And here's what they did. They said in 2023, they laser engrave each stone with the color-cut clarity caret. Then check it out. They log that stone info to a public Ethereum blockchain in conjunction with the GIA, the Gemological Institute of the Americas. Why? Because instead of going to some future strip mall jeweler and saying, what do we got? They go, blockchain says you got this. Why does that matter? Because suddenly all those eye-rolly blockchain words like immutable make sense. You're like, oh, it's a certificate of digital authenticity that holds up regardless of how loud the left screams versus the right, up screams versus the down, this jeweler versus that, incentives versus that. It's truth in a post-trust age, and it's powered by decentralized computing. None of us is as trustworthy as all of us. We're seeing watchmakers recognize that the recording is the reporting, putting a QR code into the watch face so you can actually look at this thing through a camera and prove that you're the real McCoy all the time, etched in sapphire. We're seeing folks stamping out child labor in Africa by following the provenance of cocoa beans as it goes from tree to cup. None of these stories are making the news because none of these stories feel like crypto get rich quick. But this is what's interesting right now on the computation side, on the platform side. Now, we're at the juncture where we recognize that there's notes to be taken. 1, technology ain't random. The blizzard of buzzwords is the enemy, and these are the 3 trajectories that have mattered. They will continue to. 2, the names are icky, sticky, squishy, wishy. They don't matter. Don't get caught in a taxonomy war. You will never get that time back. Right? The ideas matter, the names less so. But then 3, dum, dum, dum. Future's still coming. We don't live at the end of history. Right? We're not here to build the once and for all answers. We're here to build the next block in the wall. And so that's to say, we know that interfaces get simpler. We know databases get smarter. We know computation places get stronger. So we can reasonably project what's coming next. So let's speed date in our last 10 minutes together the actual future. Okay? Ambient experiences are what stand to be next in human-computer interaction. I was at a birthday party with my daughter. She's 13. She had 13-year-old friends at the party. It was Chicago, so it was a hockey rink skating party. Daddy, can you hold my phone? They won't let us have phones on the rink. Can you hold my phone, Mr. Bechtel? Can you hold my phone? I've got 13 phones. 2 insights. 1, R2-D2 had nothing on this. It's a beeping stack of crazy. 2, the capital expense in my hands, man. I was like, good Lord, this is like $15,000 of CapEx. I got to go hide this in a bag. But it hit me that it was too much. Just as too many screens are too much, too many addressable technology anythings are too much. I checked my Google Wi-Fi. I've got 86 devices at home. I felt guilty, but then again, as a Catholic, I'm really good at guilt. So I called my friend across the street, Rob Goldberg. I said, Rob, how many do you got on yours? He goes, 93. I said, okay, I feel better. But it's still too much, right? From a nerd standpoint, the problem is something called lexical scope. Addressability. Too much of anything, you don't know what to do. You don't know where you can talk freely, what you can say. But I liken it to my grandma problem. My grandma Funk, she was 92 when she passed. She used to rifle through every one of her grandkids' names. She'd be like, Marty, Tommy, Charlie, Bobby, you. Anybody ever feel like they're doing that now with smart speakers? You call this thing Alexa, you call the other one Siri. Then there's Cortana. Apparently your TV has a Bixby. Who knew? Notice the visual symbolism that I'm about to unfurl on you. Futurists are historians. I am not saying the path forward is a return to Victorian servitude. I am saying that when Lord Grantham was going into the city, he wouldn't say, shine my shoes, prep my lunch, gas the car. He said, I'm going to the city. And the staff would self-organize and self-actualize and create the outcomes that he expected. And so too, we're seeing that the next generation of user interfaces will be proactive and predictive. It looks like you're trying to head out on an airplane. We're going to charge the car battery. We're going to lock the doors behind you. We're going to get the ticket ready, and we're going to order the chicken. We tried this stuff 30 years ago. The problem was good old Clippy was neutered by like 4K of RAM and a 56K internet connection, right? Right? Clippy had the right idea. He just didn't quite have the horsepower. Okay? But he was right. It's my third Star Wars reference. Okay. AI, Data Summit. What's next in AI? Well, this is the part where our fearless protagonist says, have you heard? AI is graduating from discernment and classification to creativity and generation. And you know this, because my hunch is half your conference is about generative AI. Generative AI, it's generative. It's generating things generatively. We've been talking about this for 5 years. I've been talking to people about how machines can write Shakespeare that fools Shakespeare scholars. And frankly, nobody ever cared. Because I don't think anybody secretly cares too much about Shakespeare. But when you turn it into a chat, and you can ask it, where's the beer? And it spits you out an answer that I'm going to take advice from in like 3 hours? You say, okay, wow, it's a mechanical miracle. And then when you put that same firmament into code and say, hey, machine, can you pair program some JavaScript with me? Can you create some code base with me? You realize that per Imad Mustak, the founder of Stability AI, that traditional developers as we know them will be extinct in less than 5 years. Because low code, no code ain't nothing compared to what's code. Now, we've seen this, right? I will always think of this as the Mona Lisa of generative AI, because when Sam Altman popped this out on Twitter live when they dropped DALL-E 2, I was with a client, and we were like, oh, that's insane. A sea otter like Vermeer in less than a second. And one of my friends trolled Altman that day. He's like, let's see if it can do this. And 3 minutes later, that pops out the other end. To which my taciturn friend says, well, I don't see the propellers. And why does that matter that he said, I don't see the propellers? What matters is, as miraculous as this stuff feels, it's ultimately a funhouse freaking mirror for those using it. I had a C-suite audience at a Deloitte gathering in our Dallas Deloitte University location. This executive came up to it. I said, this thing will paint you anything you can imagine. You're limited only by your imagination. Whatever you want to see, just ask it. The guy goes, show me a sunset. And then a sunset comes up. And he was disappointed by it. And I'm looking at him like, that's because you're disappointing, bro. Ask for a sunset. His next level direct report comes in. She goes, okay, I want to see Cheetos versus Fritos. Cheetos get nunchucks. Fritos get squirt guns. It's on Mars. They're all wearing McDonald's hats. Masterpiece. She's delighted. We're all delighted. And I'm thinking somebody's next in line for a new job. Because the imagination deficit is going to be the new deficit for business leaders. Because in a world where you can literally cook up anything, you better have some good questions. We used this stuff to build all the artwork in our Deloitte Tech Trends last October. Incredible. Our artists went through the Kubler-Ross stages of grief. Right? On Monday, I don't want some robot taking my job. On Wednesday, this thing's like Photoshop on steroids. On Friday, can I get a license? I'm never not using this again. Right? Let's design some apartments. Talk to a rocket scientist at NASA. We're building literal rocket ship parts with generative AI. They look funky, but they work. And if you study it long enough, you realize why they work. Holy cow. Computerized creativity gets all the love, but the unsung hero here, keep your eye on what I like to call electronic emotion, digital empathy, affective emotional intelligence. This is the idea not of Joaquin Phoenix falling in love with robot Scarlett Johansson, or of Gosling falling in love with robot Ana Darmas, but of tools like this from HireVue, which during a video conversation studies the counterparty's eye movements, eyebrow movements, lip movements, word payload, musicality of the speech to suggest charisma and empathy, or monotone nature suggesting they should not be with clients. Now, this stuff is an equal employment opportunity freakout. It's not ready for prime time. They had to pull it. But we had to pull Clippy once too. Right? It will be ready. Okay, landing the plane, gang. Spatial web. There was a miracle period about 5 years ago where all of our kids played outside. Right? And it was because we found a way, they found a way, Niantic found a way to merge the physical and the digital. And it was glorious. And then it kind of went away as these things do. And then we started seeing people like this student who used Apple's AR kit, the Unity game dev framework, and the LiDAR sensor on a camera to overlay matrix-like noise all over his apartment. Business case, 0. But remember, tech toy tool. So you get these cats in Shanghai who decide they're going to rent, I love this, they rented 1,000 drones, sent them into Shanghai's night sky to form a QR code. 20 million people held their phone up and said, wow, what's that? 2 million of them ended up paying $5 each to download a video game. Right? From Matrix silliness in an apartment to that in 3 weeks flat. The point is, the physical and the digital are merging. Here's Jeff Bezos doing a Lex Luthor impression. But what we're going to be finding is that the old world of bricks versus clicks is just going to go away. And as my son says, baseball cards used to be on paper? Weird. Folks, I'm going to turn it over for questions here. I'm going to build out the final slide and let you guys ask anything you might want. I'm not robbing you of good stuff at the end so much as just throwing it up there. Questions, concerns, comments. I want to respect our next speaker. I want to respect our agenda and make sure that y'all feel like you have what you need to light your day up right. Yes, ma'am.
Where does a futurist belong in an organization?
Where does a future? I love that question. Thank you for that. I'm gonna just build to this really quick. This isn't me stalling. This is me respecting the right ending slide. There you go. Like and subscribe, as my son would say. We sit. So Deloitte, right, as a Big Four firm, we have tax, audit, consulting, and advisory as our businesses. I sit in our consulting business, and that is to say our consulting business is ultimately focused on helping our clients build their futures. And so I conceived my role and built my team around the idea that the electric light did not come from the continuous improvement of candles. And so many people are so focused on putting that data mesh in to play catch up, or whatever they're doing, that nobody's thinking about leapfrog. And so we built our business case really all around, what if there was a need for next practices in addition to best practices? Let's figure out where the proverbial puck is going and then help build a capability to help people get there. So yeah, and then we, carry sales and revenue targets just like any other deal supporting group. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, actually, just one quick one. So if I scan that code, it's not going to charge me for a video.
I do believe the Shanghai people had the opportunity to opt out. No, that just takes you to my LinkedIn page.
Okay. The other question I have, so of course, when you talk AI right now, a lot of people think of, ChatGPT
Yeah.
how do these tools keep up with the latest knowledge?
Yeah,
Because it's just fast-paced, and I don't know, I just want to get your thoughts.
for sure, man. Could everybody hear the question okay? Ish?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, the question is, tools like ChatGPT typically carry a disclaimer of like, this is up to the end of my knowledge cutoff in, I think, September of 21, which is theirs. Not that I'm a heavy user or anything. Two things on that. One, a lot of the computational resources that Microsoft in particular is throwing at that model since the OpenAI investment is around bringing that up to as near real time as possible. But it's one of these asymptotic things where, you know, like the closer you get, the further you are kind of thing. Like the last mile problem has nothing on the last minute problem as regards internet. Two, there is going to be different computational paradigms here. I hate myself for saying paradigm. That's up there with synergy and leverage. Sorry. But OpenAI, for example, their version, their Stability AI, their platform sort of eschews the idea of one monster supercomputer that knows all the things in favor of a file, get this, a file that's as small as 4 gigabytes that can live on your personal computer and be scope constrained to your personal data, whether personal means you, this conference, or your enterprise. And so get ready for a new Coke and Pepsi kind of a battle between do you want the public swimming pool or do you want your own luxury spa? Right? Yeah. And that one can be up to the second because of scope. Any other questions? We're good. Okay, we're cut off. Thank you so much for your attention, folks, and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Mike.